Lamar Jackson is the MVP of the NFL season, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what most people are saying, except one. And it's a former player turned media member. And I understand. Look, I get it. And we're going to listen to his clip. Doesn't mean that I agree with it. And that player is Richard Sherman, who has been openly saying he agrees at how dynamic of a player Lamar is. He doesn't necessarily think he is this year's MVP. So let's play that for the audience, Brad.
Down passes in the game. And that's what we needed to see all season. That's the only argument against his MVP case, is that the touchdown numbers aren't there. But again, that's 24 touchdown passes now on the season. And it just hasn't happened in a very long time. I think a couple of years ago, they keep bringing up some Peyton Manning stat where he had 28, where he got it over Brady. That was 15 years ago. People were like, you're hating. I'm just going off what the way they described this award and the way they picked this award for the past 5-6 years. And you cannot show me a situation outside of 15 years ago where they gave it to Peyton, where a guy's getting it with less than 30 touchdown passes in this day and age. You can argue to death. You can say, hey, the intangibles are there. His impact on the game, his impact on defenses, no question about it. That's not ever in question. Lamar Jackson is one of the greatest players in this game and one of the most unique players in the history of this game. The numbers are what the numbers are.
Let's talk about numbers here for a second, shall we? And then, Zach, you can jump right into this. Numbers. Yes, Lamar Jackson only has 24 touchdown passes. I think we're aware. So 24 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
You know how many touchdowns he's run for, Zach?
It's not many. It's
okay, but still 5. He has 5. So he has 29 total
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he's run for over 800 yards. If I did my math correctly there, I think that's what he's done. Yes, I did my math correctly. He's only run for 821 yards. This is what I want people to dive into more. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens. Hey, what a year for this offense, right? How good is the offense, you guys might want to know? Well, they're the second best offense on a points per game basis. They're only behind the Miami Dolphins, who they just dropped 56 on yesterday.
Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens are averaging 29.6 points a game. They are the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL right now. They have 159.7 yards per game on the ground. They have scored 473 points on the season. And again, I said that they were the second best offense in the NFL. That's ahead of teams like the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions, who seem to put up a lot of points, right? And here's the other part here where I want people to just drive this home for Lamar Jackson as a passer. Lamar Jackson, it's his best completion percentage in the NFL in all of his seasons so far. He has a 67% clip. It's the most passing yards he's thrown for in his NFL career, more than that 2019 season when he had 3,100 passing yards and 36 touchdown passes. I get it. It was 36. That number looks nice. But, Zach, I think you alluded to how many touchdowns does Gus Edwards have now? 13?
Yeah, it's up to 13. I was actually just about to go look up Justice Hill because towards the beginning of the season, he was getting some red zone touches at the goal line. But, well, I mean, if Lamar Jackson is playing in Philadelphia, he's got, 9 more touchdowns on him with the tush push. But the Ravens' tush push is get to the 2-yard line, turn around and give the ball to Gus Edwards. And that's why I'm not going to be concerned about, he only has 29 total touchdowns. Okay. They have the second best scoring offense in the league. It's not all about what are Lamar Jackson's specific personal stats. It's how is he doing it with this offense? And I mean, 13 touchdowns from Gus Edwards on the 3-yard line. I think they said there was a stat yesterday where 3 touchdowns have come outside the 5, I believe, for Gus Edwards. So, I mean, if they want to give Lamar more touchdowns, they can, but they're worried about winning. He doesn't care about stats.
Yeah, and I think who really doesn't care about who scores? Lamar Jackson. Yeah. That's what makes him great. And let me continue this on a little bit further because I'm a little bit fired up on this because this is where it just grinds my gears. Because when people around the NFL go, man, this player is unbelievable. You can't stop him. He's the MVP. There's more to that. But let's talk about numbers then, because that's what Richard Sherman wants to talk about. What is the most important time to play football in the NFL? What months specifically, or month? At the
January. Well, are you saying currently?
January for the playoffs. January for the playoffs, but December.
Yeah.
Get into the postseason. Well, let's talk about Lamar Jackson's December now, shall we? Because we're going to be honest, guys, it was pretty damn good. After that bye against the Los Angeles Chargers, that tough, weird game, they played the Rams. The Rams, to me, are really that sneaky team in the NFC that no one really wants to face right now. Lamar Jackson, 3 touchdown passes in that game. Then you go to Jacksonville, leading the AFC South, beat the Jags, beat the Niners, as we know on Christmas, then you beat the Dolphins. Lamar has 11 touchdown passes, the 2 interceptions over that string of games. The only game really that you're going, man, really tough recently for him was that game against Cleveland where Deshaun Watson and the Browns, they pulled it off. Yep, it was rough. But how about against don't forget about the Detroit Lions where he had 3 touchdowns, 357 yards. And this is the thing that drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson does what Lamar Jackson needs to do. Lamar Jackson threw the ball 21 times, completed 18 passes, threw for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. But Lamar Jackson can also throw for 160 yards, and the Ravens still win by 2 touchdowns because he will do whatever is necessary, and also factor in your security blanket. Your all-pro tight end, Mark Andrews, is out. J.K. Dobbins lost for the season. You've seen this reshuffling on the offensive line, and they've done a tremendous job, by the way. That's no knock, but that makes it harder. And all Lamar Jackson has done is continued to win games over and over again. So if we're going to talk about numbers, to me, this season for Lamar Jackson, hands down the most impressive. And numbers aside, I don't care about passing touchdowns. You look at the eye test. Is this not the best player in the NFL right now?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the answer is an obvious yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. The eye test is where this year I think it's decided because, hey, Richard Sherman's right. There are not a lot of great stats out there right now. I mean, in most years, I don't think Lamar Jackson would win the MVP, but no one's going out and dominating every week except for Lamar Jackson the past 4 or 5 weeks. So I think it comes a point where you do go solely off the eye test, not solely off the eye test, but that's where this tiebreaker between the Lamars, the Brock Purdy's, the Tuas, the CMCs, that's where it comes in, because every time Lamar Jackson steps on the field, there is no question who the best player on the field is. When other guys step on the field, it feels as if at different times they step up, they take steps back. Lamar Jackson, no matter what he does, it just feels like that's the best football player on the field, regardless of position.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I alluded to earlier in my little rant. Yeah, people don't realize that was the fact that Lamar is over 3,600 passing yards, closing in on 4,000 passing yards, and he's short of 1,000. But because Lamar Jackson didn't run for 1,000 yards, his impact isn't there. And Brad, you even brought this up. Some people are looking at the fact of, well, they're not accounting for his rushing stats, but that's the NFL nowadays. Jalen Hurts, a tush push. Jalen Hurts for the Eagles, he has the tush push. He's getting X amount of touchdowns there. What if Swift cashed those in? That's the point that Zach brought up. That touchdown stat to me is irrelevant. It's can you get your team down there consistently? And no one, besides if you want to make the point of the Dolphins for points per game, but to me, no one has helped their team score more points and be more effective on offense than Lamar Jackson.
That's what doesn't make sense to me. We have a lot of these talking heads on ESPN and wherever else, Fox Sports, that'll talk about the passing numbers, but they still refuse to bring up the rushing side of it. We have so many quarterbacks now since Lamar's been in the league, and even before that, right? Like the Cam Newtons and the Michael Vicks, where they just wouldn't count rushing for some reason. It's like, did he not rush for 100 yards that game? I don't really get it. Even in Colin Kaepernick's, right? I mean, why isn't total yards and total touchdowns included in this conversation? It should be moving forward, and I'm going to continue to include. I'm going to continue to be that mouthpiece for that, because it just doesn't make any sense. I understand, like, when back in the day when it was just pocket passer, you just threw the ball, there was the rushing yards, maybe you got 100 in a season. But now it's totally different, and it needs to be a different conversation. Lamar Jackson has done so much with his legs and his arm that it all needs to be a part of that. And I don't know when that'll finally be accepted, but it needs to happen soon, because that's really what the whole body of work should be about. It shouldn't just be about how many times you throw the ball. It should be both passing and rushing, because those are still part of the game. Lamar Jackson isn't winning games if he can't use his legs. Jalen Hurts isn't doing it if he can't use his legs, right? So Kyler Murray even. So I just don't. I just don't understand why talking heads refuse to do that.
Well, it's a part of the evolution of the game. And over time, Lamar Jackson is going to have to pass more than he can run, because if he's going to sustain a long career in the NFL, everyone knows that you're not going to be able to run like you did in your mid 20s than if you play into your late 30s, right? That's the reality.